that are in the pathway of this particular pipeline. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Shelly Rahman. I'm a resident of Newtown Square, 304 Crum Creek Lane, Newtown Square. This is the first time I'm in this council, and I'm a resident of Delaware County for over 40 years. And to be honest with you, I never knew you guys exist. So since the last election, this is what I'm so impressed. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and your council. And always hearing good thing about the council, how you are working together. So, after the thanks, I want to raise an issue which is not in the agenda. Partly for two reasons. I'm a lifelong Democrat. I'm a resident of this county, and I also work with the Bureau of Election regularly, so it's very important for me. The Board of Election. So, I understand there are 3 members in the Board of Election. 2 represent the majority, not majority party. The party who got the most vote in the previous election will get the majority, 2 members, and the other party will be 1 member. But this year, there's a conflict because the council is majority Republican. But that doesn't mean it's not a council. I'm a Democrat, but trust me, you are representing me, all 5 of you. So there is a conflict. What happens? Because you will be elected, but your predecessor was pretty smart. They came up with a solution, which is a tradition. To make democracy work, they came up that the party that minority representation in the council, the chairman will nominate or recommend who will be in the next election board member. And then you have the option to vote, and you can reject and again. But I'm hearing that this time that tradition will be broken. So that's my concern. I would really request you all not to do that. There was a very, very good reason why that tradition was there. To make democracy work. So the minority party has equal voice, because democracy doesn't work if everybody doesn't have equal voice. So based on that, I will really urge that you follow the tradition. If you do not follow the tradition, it may look like the majority had a win, but that's a very narrow focus of the immediate future. Think about the impact, how that will have. The trust will be gone, tradition will be broken, and this country believes in tradition, if it's a good one, and this is a good one. So that, even if it's not in the agenda, I decided to come here because I have to work, so I cannot take off time every time. I will really, really appreciate that you do consider that. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Good morning, members of council. As well. Denise McCarthy, I live at 17 Hadley Lane in Glen Mills. I apologize, first of all, for my appearance. I teach a wellness class first thing, and voila, this is the best I can do, so I can be here on time. A couple of things I'd like to say, if I could quick. I'd like to thank you for ratifying the Adelphia intervention thingamajiggy with that pipeline. I did as well, personally. It's a good thing. Keep us safe. Number 2, the Chester Creek pedestrian trail. There was an amendment to the contract sum. But I'm curious to see, I know that it was a $6 million plus project, big project. Is that anywhere near the blasting of the Sunoco pipeline, I'm wondering? Does that trail run close to the pipeline? Does anyone know?
I don't know. There's a gentleman, big time Mr. Judge, who works on this quite a bit. He might be able to help us. I'm Ryan Judge from the Planning Department. I don't know the exact specifics of the limits of the blast zone, but I think we can look into that a little bit more. And we have to compare.
Yeah, that's probably a worthwhile thing to do. Just curious. Also, I love the idea of the Old Delco reads. Every falling star, it sounds great. I'm always looking for a good read. But I did find it interesting in discussing the theme of the book, and it spoke to quoting, where freedoms they take for granted do not exist. Where freedoms they take for granted do not exist. And again, it brings me back to pipeline. And my husband and I worked our whole lives. We buy our dream home, and it's 100 feet from the pipeline itself. So we are right. I am one of the grandmothers that Brian spoke about, who's I am 100 feet from the pipeline, and I know that the laborers and the backhoe drivers and the pipe welders are all probably, I'm sure you're doing a fabulous job to the very best of your ability. I'm sure. My husband, we do construction, I know. It's not an easy life. We work hard, put bread on the table, I get that. At the same time, 100 feet from that pipeline, I toss and turn at night now. And the construction's not even finished. And Mr. Culp, with regard to you feeling like we're rushing into this, I take great offense to that statement. I invite you all, sorry, Brian and Kevin, prior to their being on council, have been to my neighborhood. They've been in my backyard. They've seen the devastation that has occurred. But I invite the three of you, Mr. McLean and Mr. Culp and Ms. Marone, please come to my house. Please walk through my neighborhood. See where I am. Have you done that? Just out of curiosity. Have you, Mr. Culp?
Me, I don't know where you live, I'll be honest with you. You say if I don't.
Have you been walked the pipeline route at all, or been there?
I have not.
You have not. Well, I think it would really behoove you to do that. And whether it's my house or go to Aston, walk down 352.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Mr. Chairman, council members, my name is Terry Owen. I live on Walnut Avenue in Alton, Pennsylvania. I've been a nearly 40-year resident and lifelong resident of Delaware County. On another topic, I come today to make comment and possible recommendation about the National Drug Take-Back Program. For those of you that are not fully aware of the history, it was a program that was developed in 2010 by the Drug Enforcement Agency to find a mechanism to be able to take medications, over-the-counter products, and get them out of the environmental waste system, the water stream, help prevent theft and misuse. This was occurring on the same cusp as our opioid crisis. In doing so, the nation had rose to the occasion and has had thousands and thousands of collection sites biannually. And this was a temporary measure until a more permanent solution was found to be able to allow for regular disposal of these products. In 2014, that permanent solution was developed in the form of drop boxes, which look like mailboxes that are properly labeled and securely positioned in post offices now, or I'm sorry, in police stations now around the country, and are emptied as the volume increases and the people that are actually monitoring them find that they need to be disposed of, and it's taken care of properly. I've been part of this program since the inception in the position that I held through Borough Council in Alden. I became aware of this. I thought that this was an absolute worthwhile program, and solicited our police chief, who was more than willing to become a host site. Along with myself and a police officer, we have done every single collection since 2010. We have had great success in Alden, and I attribute that success to our advertisement, the diligence of our residents and passersby. And I'm very pleased to inform that as of October, Alden's collection alone has now exceeded 1 ton. In looking at the date for the next collection, I found that the DEA website has put in some data of the last 4 collections, so it goes back to April of 2016. And it allowed me to see that the national collection sites has remained constant. The collection weight has remained constant. But what I also was able to look back on was the data that we get after each collection from the local DEA agent in the Philadelphia branch. And what I've seen from a state level is that the state continues to have about the same number of collection sites and the same weight of collection. When I looked at the county collection level, I'm finding that the number of sites has dropped off dramatically. The second collection, back in 2011, it would have been in spring of 2011, there were 20 collection sites. In this past October, there were now 5. Alden is still the one that is there time and time again. As far as the amount of weight within Delaware County, the weight has also dropped off significantly. The last collection in October, there were 458 pounds collected. 240 pounds was from Alden alone. With the surrounding counties that we have in Delaware, from around Delaware County, we are 4th lowest out of the 5. So with that information, I'd like to make a recommendation for council to advertise for this program at each of the collections. The DEA has already announced that the next collection is April 28th. It's always a Saturday, and it's always held from 10 to 2. The DEA agency provides each of the boroughs with boxes and large posters that I take and place in strategic areas in our borough, as well as at the local pharmacy in the market in our town. Alden also has a banner, and that came from the support of Borough Council, and we always have a council member in attendance. What we find is, in addition to the residents and passersby doing their due diligence, this becomes an opportunity for the people that are disposing of these medications to talk to the officers, and it becomes a very positive mindset for the residents. They feel like they're doing good. When they're depositing these medications in the drop boxes, it's anonymous. They come in, they drop it off, and they go. Doing it in person allows these residents to be able to talk about why they're there bringing these drugs in, whether they have accumulated a lot through multiple medical conditions, whether they are cleaning out a home after someone's death, or whatever the reason may be. We have had people arrive by taxi cab. We have a regular resident who comes walking very slowly because she's carrying her oxygen tank. So we have people that are really invested in this program, and I'd like County Council to remind residents of this program and possibly get behind it a little bit more to get the word out that it still exists, it's still worthwhile, and it's showing some good work. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ellen. And I obviously, I know Terry, Sheriff on Borough Council together and all for a time, and she has single-handedly run the program in Alden and done, as you can hear, just a simply fantastic job. I recall one report, I was on the county council that we got, where it gave us the breakdown of everything that had been collected at these different sites, and my number may be wrong, but I recall having 90 pounds that particular day, and when we looked at it, it could have been 190 pounds, I don't recall, but we exceeded more than it was, Haverford's and several other larger municipalities combined. And I thought it was a mistake, asked them to recheck it, but it's the case, and it really does show, like I said, Ms. Owen has led the effort to advertise it and get the word out, and when you do that, and you work hard at it, as she has, you see the results that it has generated. And every one of those pills that are not donated, but dropped off, and there are boxes and boxes by the end of the day, are one less pill that's available to somebody out there. So I want to personally thank you for all of your efforts and commend you and the others, and I do agree with you that if I didn't know about those numbers that you had related to us, but that program has dropped off a little bit. It's certainly a very worthwhile program, and we ought to beat the drum and organize volunteers in every community in Delaware County. This is a problem that does touch every community in Delaware County, and revive that and make sure that our goal should be the highest of all of the suburban communities, and including the city of Philadelphia. So that's my comment.
Ms. Owen, did you say that the next collection date is April 28th?
Yes, it is.
Perhaps we could look into, that also coincides with the overdose awareness of Memorial Walk is on that same day, and perhaps we could look into maybe advertising the two of those together. They seem to be related in many ways.
I do know that when there are county events, there is usually, well, now that there's the drug take-back ban, there is also a collection done at many of the public events. So at any opportunity that there is to do a collection, that would certainly be worthwhile. We went from an opioid crisis into an epidemic proportion. So we do have to try to empty out the homes and pocketbooks of these drugs. Things that are as simple as Tylenol and ibuprofen can be used wrongly and really affect what we have going on nationally and globally at this point. But I thank you, Mr. McLean, for making those comments. And when we first started the collection with my police officer partner, we wondered if it was going to be worthwhile because we collected 10 pounds. And then with each successive collection, it just grew exponentially. And we did have one collection that it was 439 pounds. And I know the doctor at BDN had just recently came on board and actually was at our location when someone brought an enormous tub that took 2 people to carry from their car, and it was filled with just capsules and tablets, not even in the vials anymore. It was totally empty and filled. And it's just showing that it works in Alden. I think it can work everywhere. And even if the boroughs are not interested in having their own collection, at least they, or council can advertise who is registered and who is going to be sponsoring this site, so that the products can be brought up to our location.
Thank you.
We'd love to have one.
I'd just like to echo the chairman's sentiments. I know the program is important, it's immensely important. I think we all agree of its importance. I've heard the comparison made of having unused pills and lying around being the equivalent of having a load of lying around. So I appreciate your coming forth and telling us about the drop-off in the program in Delaware County. And thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, sir.
How you doing? My name is Robert DeWill. I'm a lifelong resident of Delaware County. I grew up in Darby. I live in Glen Olden, and I own a home in Glen Mills, 30 Broomall Lane in Glen Mills. I'm a proud member of 542, the Operating Engineers, and I've worked just on the east for Chicago Bridge and Iron. That's the company that built all the tanks. okay? And I understand the concerns. People that don't know and are not aware of the construction methods that are used, I can understand them being a little leery about it. But I worked there for 4 years, and we built 6 tanks. I've watched hundreds of thousands of gallons of propane, butane, ethane being transported from ships into the tanks, and then from the tanks back to the ships again. We build every tank. The amount of testing, every joint is x-rayed in the tank. They're all double wall tanks down there. All the piping is thoroughly inspected. There's a lot of thought and a lot of safety that goes into this. Like I said, I've been there for 4 years, and I've never worked in that field, you know, until the operating engineer sent me there to work for CB&I. Now I know just about every aspect because I've been involved in every aspect. Filling the tanks up with river water, draining them out again, pressurizing them, putting them under vacuum. That includes the piping too. And there hasn't been any releases. And if there's a time for releases, when you're building all brand new piping, and that's the time to have a problem. Like I didn't run those. I understand. I can understand what people say. You know what I mean? But it's really unfounded. And I wouldn't be up here saying that, putting my name out there if it wasn't true. You know, I worked on top of the tanks, in the tanks, on the piping, every aspect. That people were a little bit more aware of how and how much safety is put into it, and how much thought goes into all this. That, you know, but there's still going to be people that are scared. You know what I mean? That are afraid of it. But what's going on down here in the future? I'm going to be retiring shortly. But what that's going to do for this whole Delaware County and the whole area, the economy and everything, you know. And like I said, the safety aspect of it. There's so many safety people and engineers that do the check. That's more jobs. And as long as you got people making sure that everything's safe, I mean, it's safe. Like I said, the one tank down there is 900,000 barrels propane. You know what I mean? You got a butane tank that's 580,000 barrels. I mean, they're huge tanks, and they're full of product, and that product goes through all the piping down there. Now, usually when you're going to have a problem, when you're first putting everything together, that's when you have problems. There hasn't been any problems that I'm aware of. I feel perfectly safe going through that gate and working there. And I'm looking forward to when, I'm hoping that you do your safety audit or you do whatever you got to do when the pipeline starts working again and it gets completed. Wait till you see what it does for the county. Because I got kids, I got grandkids, and all that. They're going to need jobs. They're never going to leave if this project gets completed. And the people that are afraid, their fears are set aside by showing them how it's done. There's, you know, we have films and stuff that we have to, you know, watch about how the processes are done in order for us to get certified to go in and out of the plant. Make them available to the public. And when they see what goes into it, you know, maybe they'll start to, their concerns might be subsided a little bit. But that's all I got to say.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, folks. George Alexander, 437 East Franklin here in New York. And first I want to congratulate council. I know it's been very hard to reach some kind of compromise on this whole pipeline study. And I had given up hope that it would happen. I'm glad it's happening now. And it's a good sign for our democracy, I think. I am interested in learning more about the details. I'm a little worried. And the thing that worries me most is the relative lack of mention of public input so far. And there are really 3 places where I think involving the public would help. And I'm hoping that some of this public involvement can be incorporated. First of all, in developing the RFP, what are we going to be asking these consultants to do? I think it's important that that be specified in a way that makes sure it covers everything that, or the main points anyway, that people are worried about. And the second is in selecting the vendor that, or vendors to whom this will go, or the final selection of the vendor. I think there is an important role for public input there as well, to make sure people understand that the process is fair and not biased toward the industry or some specific special interest. And finally, as Mr. Block said earlier, I think it would be very useful to have a public group looking at the question of acceptable risk. If it is possible to arrive at some judgment on acceptable risk, I'm not sure that it is, but if it is, it would be a great thing, and the public should be involved. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Chairman McLean, ladies and gentlemen of the council. My name is John M. Gallagher, 1002 Twickenham Road, Media, Nether Providence Township, Pennsylvania. I've been thinking about this problem for about 6 months, and I was semi-alarmed to see on the television yesterday the live coverage of the Senate, U.S. Senate Intelligence Committee, questioning the intelligence officers of the United States, the FBI, CIA, people like that, to see that as of this date still, there have been no efforts made by the federal government aimed at facing and combating meddling by Russia of the 2018 elections. If there are no efforts by the federal government, the state government has no business, has no jurisdiction over those elections. We can't look to the township and boroughs to face such an enormous problem. I'm afraid it's going to fall on county council. And I don't want you to do something today, tomorrow, or next week, but I'm just hoping that the members of county council will think about this problem, that you are the last bulwark and the only bulwark against Russian meddling with our election process. We don't know what form it's going to take this year, but if you could put together a brainstorming session of selected people, not expecting you members of county council to do it all, maybe you can just appoint a few people. One idea would be, for example, to take some high school seniors who come by for internships and stick them in front of computers and have them search the National Enquirer to see what stories they come up with over the past 2 years that match the National Enquirer story about Pope Francis endorsing President Trump and his election. If we discovered that the National Enquirer also has stories about Elvis appearing and about spaceships not landing or landing, it might be worth the county council's worthwhile to publicize things like that, to educate the public that they should be careful, that they should not buy hook, line, and sinker what they see in the National Enquirer or on Facebook or other dubious sources. That's where I think most of the meddling occurs, but what do I know? I haven't looked into it officially. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gallagher. Thank you. Is there any further public comment? Is that further public comment, ma'am, or is this a bathroom? Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, council members. Thank you for bringing us up to date on the Mariner East committee that you are putting together. I notice you're talking just about hazard, and last week I made a public statement about the drilling damage to people's properties and to their private wells, and I wonder if that is going to be addressed. Or I spent this weekend actually walking around sites because I couldn't believe what was happening. And I visited people whose well water had turned to sludge. They had had buffalo tanks installed by Sunoco.
They were living off bottles of water. It was like a third world country. It was raining. There was sludge coming down the streets. One house had the Sunoco barricades along 2 of its walls. They tried to sell that house a few months ago. Got not one single offer because it looks like Fallujah, to be honest. So I'm just wondering.
What town was that in?
That was an Andover, just by Street Road. And I'm shocked, I made a statement last week. What legal recourse do we have? How can we protect ourselves as residents? I'm in one of those places where we're 150 feet from within the drilling. And we now know it's not if something happens, it's when it happens. And I'm feeling helpless, and I've been talking to all these people that have well water damage, and most of them don't know what to do. Some of them have tried talking to Sunoco. I myself brought up these issues before Christmas, and I was promised some sort of statement by a supervisor, and I've heard nothing. And I just feel that as residents of Delaware County, we deserve more than that. So I would really welcome some comments here.
Have you, for the concerns you have you talked to somebody from the Department of Environmental Protection?
I submitted a very long letter to Mrs. Yordi from the DP, and I gave a copy last week to Mr. Madden and to Mr. Zidek of that letter.
I mean, obviously, DEP is the agency that directly controls the permitting of the construction as it relates to the well water situation, crossing streams, the safety of water. So I certainly should ask to have one of them come out. I mean, if what you're describing are violations of permits.
I don't know if it's a violation so much, Mr. Chairman. I think it's a cavalier attitude that they have right now. They just think they can drill where they plan to drill. And we know that that drilling causes all that underground. I went into that last week.
They have to get a permit to drill wherever it is that they drill. In fact, one of the reasons that DEP did halt construction under the order was that they had done horizontal drilling in places that was not permitted. That was not, I've read the order, it was not in Delaware County, but in one of the other 17 counties where this is occurring. So they do need to drill exactly where it is their permit says that they're able to drill. So if they're not doing that, or if it's being done improperly, I would certainly, see if we can't reach out to DEP and have somebody come down. My understanding from our conservation district is DEP does inspect it on an ongoing basis. So they do have DEP inspectors here in Delaware County looking at the work that's being done. So we need to somehow, if you've identified issues or problems, get you together with those DEP inspectors in order to address that.
Right, but what I heard from speaking to the other people is that the drilling has just continued. It's right to Slayton Park now, which is just a few hundred yards from me. And somebody was here last week that had some damage to their property on Valley Road. That hasn't been addressed. So as I say, I spoke to Percheron Services before Christmas, Lance, who I believe is being here, and I've heard nothing more. He was going to speak to his supervisor, and this is apparently what everybody is being told. So,
well, like I said, maybe what we could do is try to get together with the DEP inspectors. Again, they're the ones that directly hold the permits. So a lot of the problems that you're describing, if they're not within the permit, where they drill, how it is they drill, those are things that are directly controlled by DEP. DEP can take action against Sunoco and take the civil action and take regulatory action such as the fine that they've levied. And I think that's I do see that it was over $12 million in fines, to go for clean water projects. And I would suggest council, perhaps just as an idea we look forward to in the future, is sort of making that claim for part of those funds. We have our municipalities, all are now required to improve their stormwater management and reduce by 10% all the pollutants that are in any stormwater, such as dirt and mud and that sort of thing. Every municipality in Delaware County has had to present a plan to DEP in order to reduce those pollutants by 10% and improve the quality of stormwater that's being discharged into our creeks, streams, and rivers. So, and that's an expensive proposition for many of our municipalities. So I think one of the ideas we should ask is that, since this project does affect our county, to have some of those funds come back to our municipalities in Delaware County to assist them in their, for their municipal permits and for that pollution reduction plan that each of our municipalities will have to implement over the next 4 years.
Because, that's a good point, because I did notice the 12.6 million, none of that is going towards remediation for any of these poor people.
And perhaps it's something that we can help you with, reaching out to the DEP. If they're not responding to you, perhaps they'll respond.
Okay, thank you, I would very much appreciate that. I would just like to...
We got your name.
Yes, Rosemary Fuller, 226 Valley Road, Media, sorry, forgot that last week. Also, I want to make a point to the engineers that spoke. My father was an engineer, and they do wonderful work, but I would just like to point out that you're working on sites that have no gas, no liquids going through the pipes at this point. And I know that recently some pipes were installed that had cracks in them because the pipes are allowed to stay out in the freezing weather, and damage is done, cracks appear, and if there is not a re-inspection of those pipes when they're put into the ground, then that is what causes the damage and the potential risk when those pipes are filled with the liquids later on. So as such, with nothing going through, you are in no risk just now. But we are very concerned that some of these corners around the properties, there's one, I think a property owned by Elwyn, that is on Valley Road, and it had 3 sharp corners to it. And I've been told that this is where the weaknesses in these pipes occur. So, that's another thing for this risk assessment that we really need to concentrate on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now's the time for council's comments. We'll start off with Mr. Zayat.
Nothing today, sir.
Mr. Madden.
I have no further comments, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Cole.
Nothing, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Ms. Morone.
Nothing further today?
Well, I will break the cycle. I do want to make some comments, and it actually dovetails nicely in with what Ms. Owen was talking about. Last year, Delaware County Council was one of the first governments in Pennsylvania to file a lawsuit against approximately 20 drug companies that manufacture opioids such as OxyContin. Our complaint laid out a detailed narrative of the deceptive research and marketing practices of these companies beginning in the 1990s that, in our opinion, has directly led to the heroin and opioid crisis that we face today. The numbers in Delaware County bear repeating: more than 200 deaths per year, and many times that individuals that become addicted each year. We are nearing 1,100 saves by our police departments with Narcan, and there are likely just as many saved by Narcan by EMS responders. One of the stated purposes of the lawsuit is to recover the millions of taxpayer dollars that have been spent fighting the effects of this epidemic. But in my mind, just as importantly, a purpose was to bring to bear pressure on these drug companies through multiple lawsuits to stop what they were doing, and sometimes the costs of litigation are the only way to assert such pressure. This past week, Purdue Pharma, the makers of OxyContin, announced that they will stop encouraging doctors to write the painkiller scripts. This Monday, Purdue will halt all promotion of the drug to healthcare professionals. It will slash its sales staff and stop the marketing of this drug. Purdue Pharma was the first named defendant in our lawsuit. There's more to this that needs to be done, and this is not the cure to the epidemic. Our role dealing with the effects of the epidemic continues to grow. Purdue didn't take this action because of Delaware County's lawsuit alone, but I hope that in some way the actions we took are starting to have the intended effects. I hope to read a lot more about these stories in the months to come. And that's all I need to say. So unless there's anything further from the council, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion on the motion? If none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Aye.